When I was about 6 years old, I had a friend named Joe. He lived with his mom in Cambridge, Mass., but on Saturdays, he had kung fu in Boston, after which he would go and stay at his dad's for the night. His dad lived right around the corner. Aside from a Macintosh Plus, which I thought was the coolest thing ever, it was a pretty standard bachelor pad. There were milk crates everywhere. His bed was, naturally, a mattress on the floor. And next to that, in a little sleeve, was this thing, a Casio VL-1. These things have since become kind of legendary. I played with it a little bit as a 6-year-old, and I haven't touched one since, so now's my chance. The VL-1 was released in 1979, and it often gets cited as the first mass-produced digital synthesizer ever. It has a built-in calculator, who cares, but what's cool about it is that you can use the calculator function to control the synthesizer. So let's dig in. Okay, so first things first. Let's try out the basic voices. There's piano, fantasy, violin, flute, and guitar. I'm just going to record a quick loop in Ableton. Instead of a metronome, I'm just using the bass drum from this pocket operator. Okay, that's good. I kind of want this to serve as a bass instrument. I've got this on the lowest octave setting, but it still doesn't quite feel low enough. So I'm going to drop the audio down an octave in Ableton. So the VL-1 actually has a few preset rhythm patterns. A lot of you will recognize this beat. It's been used in a bunch of different places. Most famously, the song Da 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 by Trio. This loop is so recognizable that it almost feels like you can't use it because it's already been done. Each drum pattern is made up of 3 distinct sounds, which, according to the service manual, actually have names: Po, Pi, and Sha. I'm going to tune this down a little bit in Ableton. Okay, let's thicken this up. I'm going to add a snare drum to that pocket operator beat. Okay, let's record a melody. So before, when I was talking about the different sounds that this keyboard can make, I listed 5 options. But there's actually one more setting: ADSR. For those who don't know, ADSR is a standard acronym. It just stands for Attack, Decay, Sustain, and Release. And it basically just means that we get to customize the shape of our sound. Let's give that a shot. I've got a copy of the manual here, and it explains exactly how to make sounds. You switch the sound switch over to ADSR, then you switch the far right switch to calculator. You hit memory clear, and then you type an 8-digit code. The entire specification for each sound is stored in that code. Each digit represents a different aspect of the sound. So let's try one out. The first number is the waveform. You have 9 choices. I'm going to type in 0, which corresponds to the piano sound. The next 5 digits are the amplitude envelope, which basically means the shape of the sound. I'm just going to enter 5 numbers pretty much arbitrarily at this point. Finally, we have 2 numbers that represent vibrato and tremolo, respectively. I'm just going to arbitrarily set those both to 2. And now we switch back to play mode. Cool, it's working. And it actually sounds different than any of the default sounds, so this functionality is actually serving its purpose. Looking at the manual, one of the things I'm most curious about are these 3 voices: Electrosound 1, 2, and 3. These are waveforms that are not accessible through the slider at the top. You can only reach them by making your own patch. Oh, that's cool. I guess it's alternating between 2 notes. Okay, and the tempo actually changes how fast it alternates. It's impossible for me to hear this sound without wondering what it would sound like with effects. So let's get that going. The mood and the microcosm are very much birds of a feather. They're both really good at taking a simple signal and expanding it into an entire soundscape. Meanwhile, the generation loss is kind of just there to add texture at the end of the chain. It's a combination that's worked really well for me in the past. So the first thing I want to try is one of those weird alternating waveforms. Let's turn the mood up. Wow, that really sounds like strings. I'm going to try to sample this and make a sort of fake string sample library. Surprisingly cinematic. Let's try for something mellower. Oh, that's nice. That's just the piano sound run through 2 layers of delay. The second you turn down the wet level on the pedals, you start to get the charming, sort of video gamey sound of the VL-1 coming through. I'm particularly partial to the flute sound. Clusters of notes always seem to work well with this setup. Also, repeatedly hitting the same note over and over again. It's sort of like in an orchestra, where you have many instruments bowing and rebowing, all at slightly different times. I'm going to try using the mood as a sampler. I'm just going to play a few high notes. Now those notes are stored in the pedal, and I can change the pitch using this knob. I wonder how the built-in rhythms would sound through this setup. Let's try that. That's cool. There's a lot going on there. I'm going to see if I can play along with that. I'm recording this in Ableton so that I can add another track on top of it. Not bad. So far, I'm really liking this little keyboard. Over the years, the Casio VL-1 has been used on a ton of records. In the world of electronic music, it's become something of a cultural artifact. And I completely see why. On the one hand, it has an extremely limited number of sounds, but those sounds are pretty well chosen, and the ability to customize them makes this closer to a real synthesizer than most children's keyboards. And that's just the thing. In terms of design, this really isn't a children's keyboard. It has a ton of kitsch appeal, but not because it looks silly and dated. There's actually something sleek and utilitarian about it. Even the decision to pair it with a calculator, as strange as it might sound, makes this feel more like a tool that you might just keep around, something that might become a part of your daily life. If you enjoyed this video, it'd be great if you could give it a like. Also, if you haven't yet subscribed, now's a great time. I've got a bunch of cool videos on the way. Okay, let's talk samples. I have, of course, made a sample library out of this thing. I've recorded all the regular voices, plus those raw waveforms as well. The sample library is available for free to all. There's also a special version that's just for patrons that's called VL-1 and Friends, and it features the VL-1 combined with all sorts of outboard effects. Speaking of which, the Patreon is just $5, and every month you'll get an exclusive sample library just for patrons. Okay, I think that's it. Have fun!